As it turns out, the only thing better than a face cam is a face cam. Good afternoon, welcome to Turbo Tortoise Tech. If you're new here, I'm Reese of the 4-piece warranty or Wooks XXL. And as a guy that has to stream and make a lot of content in that sort of environment, basically weekly, I do a stream and a content piece with my face cam. It was very important to have something as good as a face cam because nobody wants to look at a terribly boiled image of an old guy. They want to see all of my gray hairs in 4K because you as gamers are responsible for half of them when you pair like a 1060 with a 1200 watt power supply and just make my blood boil with, what are you doing? Anyway, in this instance, Facecam came to the rescue because I had a Logitech Brio before and it was really difficult to get a good picture out of it. Whereas the Facecam is a lot more plug and play. I don't even use the Camera Hub software, to be very honest with you. I just do my settings through OBS and I get exceptionally good picture quality, especially when you've got pretty good lighting. It really does help. The Facecam, the original one, has a very good sensor and a pretty good lens, but it does tend to boil under low light conditions. Now with the Facecam Mark II, they've really dialed things up to 11. I really wasn't expecting this to be a lot better than the previous generation because this was already pretty much the best 1080p webcam you could buy. And then with the Facecam Mark II, I was like, they're probably going to make a couple of little bits of enhancements until I saw the shape and this much smaller sensor, and I just assumed that it would be worse. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. I could not have been more wrong. This thing's disgusting. Anyway, let's go through what's in the box. So inside this really nice, fully economical green packaging that they actually show on the side here, that it's kind of made of repurposed plastic as well, the product, and it's reduce, reuse, recycle, which I honestly think is a good thing. But I digress. Inside that package, you're going to find a really nice webcam on its much better version 2 stand. It's one of the major improvements that we do have over here, and with the thickest Type-C cable you could possibly hope to have. Giga bandwidth on these as well. They are pretty much the best Type A to Type-C cables that I run into on a daily basis. My Canon R-Line, which is what I'm recording with right now, it's got a little bit of bandwidth, especially with the 4K images. So yeah, these cables are exceptionally good. They are just the best, basically, out of any of the Type-Cs that I use on a daily basis. Now, some of the physical improvements between the V1 and the V2 comes down to the stand, as I've sort of already alluded to. It's way better for adjusting left and right because all you have to adjust left and right is this little dial that's on the bottom over here, and you have to screw it in the exact perfect position, and it's actually kind of annoying, to be honest. It was pretty much the only thing I didn't like about the V1 was the stand, where on this side it's got a full lever extra over there, and then you can just turn it on the base like that and then lock it in position with the screw after the fact. Way better than the V1 faff that we had to go through. The improvements and sort of changes don't just stop there. If we look around the back as a starter, you'll see that it's got a little bit more venting, and they've increased the overall size of the heatsink that's in there, so that this is really built for 24/7 operation. So you're not going to have to worry about that sensor cooking itself, because they've once again employed the good Sony sensors. Sony sensors are a little bit just too good, honestly. And same as the V1 had a Sony sensor, but now it's got a slightly improved version, which with a slightly improved lens and delivery creates a much better overall picture quality. It is a longer boy. It is much longer than the previous generation, but it's now narrower, so it's not as tall. It doesn't really matter, I suppose, the physical sort of changes. It's just interesting how they changed their approach, and I didn't expect them to go for this sort of lens. They're both technically the same, even though they look so different. It's almost identical, and this one actually has a bit of more shielding up and down compared to this one. If I just take off my lens clip here quickly, it's not as recessed in there kind of effect, and it's going to allow less like ambient side lighting. So even though this one physically looks a lot bigger on the V1, they're technically exactly the same. 24mm with a 1 to 2.4 f-stop. So yeah, it's basically the exact same lens. It's just that sensor and a bit of like some sort of witchcraft that they've done that makes the image quality significantly better. Starting off with the Mark 1 face cam, this is the original in the Camera Hub software. As you can see, we're just going to go through some of the settings and stuff that you can change, which will make a difference obviously to the visual quality, like the contrast as an example. It's generally pretty good on its default. Saturation, I mean, I can make myself very pinky. On the default, it does come through quite nicely. Sharpness, it tends to boil if you mess with it too much. +1 or 0 is a little bit faded, whereas +2, it's generally giving the best balance. And so that's basically the image quality that you can expect. The best image quality that you can expect from the Mark 1 is going to look a lot like this. And I've done a ton of videos with this. There's all of the buyer's guides pretty much over the last 6 months have been done with this camera, and pretty much all of the streams that we do on the Evetech channel. So check for Wookie Wednesdays, and any of the streams you see of me on YouTube have been pretty much done with this exact camera in pretty much its exact setting. I'm just obviously using a video broadcast to take out the rest of my tech workshop type of background over here. This is not the most ideal for streaming, but let's switch over to the Mark II. Now with the Mark II, you might already notice that there's quite a lot more settings and ability to tweak, and especially the stuff in the background looks way better than it did before. Like, it's considerably better on those sorts of fronts. You can do automatic white balance, but I would say it's one of the few things that you need to tune on this camera. Generally, I find that it is a touch on the warmer end. It does make me look a little bit more flush than I actually am. I'm quite pale, so it's kind of nice with that. My paleness actually helps me test cameras. Look at that. There we go. It's quite funny. But you've got the ability to have presets over here, which is quite nice. It zooms a lot better than the previous gen cam. If I even went to 130%, it was already boiling out of its absolute tiny mind over there. The fluidity of the camera is about the same as the version 1, but overall it's just a lot sharper of its base setup, and you've got percentage based sharpness, not just default kind of settings. And you can go like over uber sharp, but if we go to about 65% now, it's as sharp as it was on the previous generation camera, but just a lot better. I mean, I'm looking at the OBS window, it just looks better. Just in general, it's just better. Way more contrast depth as well to this, and percentage stepping on it as well. Once again, it actually takes the contrast quite nicely. I would say you can increase it quite a bit. As you can see, it looks flipping awesome when you do so. And then same thing for the saturation. It's actually got way more range, so you can go full le shot noir, the black into the black and white, all the French film, to like ridiculously oversaturated, and anything in between. So it's a lot more tunable than the previous generation. You can even do your own shutter speeds over here. So if you've got lights that are flickering and such, you can deal with that. And then noise reduction as well. You can enable anti-flicker with this. So yeah, it's pretty flippin' awesome. The control set is way better. The sensors obviously better. And so you can do just a lot more with the camera. So as you can see, it's actually quite a bit better than the V1, and the V1 was already my go-to if I was suggesting to guys who didn't want to go the full capture card DSLR route. Then this was a way more cost-effective way of going about it. And now the V2 just slaps it around the gills. It's almost like the jump I had from the Brio to this, the original Brio 4K, that being to the Facecam. It feels like there's another jump to the Mark II. It's significantly better than V1, especially in low light conditions. I've got to say, this tends to boil a lot, especially when you put it into OBS. The camera hub does smooth it out quite a bit, but if you raw into OBS from the original one compared to this, there's no real comparison. If you're serious about streaming or doing conferencing, anything to that facet, I think it's got enough wide angle to be able to get in like an office type of space. If you're doing conferencing or something to that effect, you don't need to go and absolutely break the bank to get a good webcam. This thing for streaming, however, is next level. It's so fluid and so clean. It is a I would say I've noticed with a lot of the images a little bit warm in its color palette, but you can obviously change that with your white balance just to get it a little bit more neutral. But that's really the only sort of setback from this camera. It's exceptionally good. You can see from the stream that I did with it, which I'll link in the description down below, it slaps. It does deliver. It's really, really, really good webcam. There's basically nothing that's going to be able to compare to it. The built-in lens cap and this privacy sort of filter, the chasing after this the whole time, I've got to say, it could get kind of annoying when you misplace it, because it's the only way to lens cap it. This one being built in is a lot better. I actually quite like this brushed sort of plastic finish. I do feel a little bit like the build quality on the first one, just on the faceplate over here, is a little bit better, oddly, than the Gen 2 product. But they're very, very similar in their function, which is, I think, a good thing, like from the indicator LED and the fact that they do have a lens cap, the Type-C, the cooling, etc. This one is actually slightly heavier because they've put more heatsink into it. So it's going to have even better lifetime than something that already had a very good lifetime. This is a proper Mark II product. This is the way you improve a product. It's got to be significantly better than the previous generation. If people want to upgrade, they're actually getting an upgrade. It's not just like a Mark 1 to Golf, you know, with a 1.8 liter to a Mark 2 Golf with a 2 liter, but it's heavier, so it's basically the exact same speed. This is a true and proper upgrade. So I've just got to give it a solid, once again, 10 out of 10. Just Elgato with these kinds of products, they're kind of untouchable. Anywho, that's all I've got for you on the Facecam Mark II. If you have enjoyed this review, please do hit us up with a like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the flip side.